Hello, friends of the World's Wealth Project. Welcome to the 13th edition. We were talking about issues that are coming up to us, and those are very important issues that we have to keep in mind regarding the future for humanity. The World's Wealth Project is that we want to present Prime Minister Trudeau a program. Now that you guys have at least approached the what is the goal of the World's Wealth Project as part of a contribution to make our contribution in order to reach for a better world. It will be presented pretty soon. I hope you guys support it and Prime Minister Trudeau will appreciate this effort. We were speaking about the high technologies and the embryo technologies, and transhumanism was the theme of the last encounter on the World's Wealth Project. We want to conclude this. Is something that is not going to be conclusive, of course, but it's some of the realities we are facing nowadays. And as such, we believe that it's important for you to participate. And yes, think about these matters. What we saw last time is that these technologies are to be applied and to be approached by science and by peoples, by communities all around the world, but especially in the developed countries, which are the countries that have the power and the laboratories and the technology to develop such an important, transcendent technologies like the MBIC technologies. That is nanotechnology, biotechnology, information technologies, and cognitive advances, technologically speaking. We saw many of the factors and how they're not going to be available for all of us, and that only the people that are enhanced will take part as optimized peoples in new governments and new decision making when it comes to politics. And well, we live in a democracy, I hope, but according to many authors, like Foreign Affairs Minister Chrystia Freeland, on her book Plutocrats, it's not looking that good. According to her book, there's more and more distance between the middle class, the poor, the rich, and the super rich. You have to read the book, it's worth reading. Plutocrats, The Rise of the Super Rich and the Falling of Everyone Else is the name of the book, Chrystia Freeland. And according to the future, where resources are going down. But according to The Guardian, just their last publication before this week, it's a fact, scientifically proven, that the ocean level is rising big time. The coastal areas around the world are being eroded by the ocean. And the ground, the soil, in order for us to feed ourselves, is being deteriorated in part because of the use of pesticides and chemicals. That has become a monopoly around the world with companies that you already know that have merged last year on a merger of $60 billion, Monsanto and Bayer. And well, the world public opinion is pretty worried about these matters. We're talking about genetically modified food that is wanting to be imposed by the TPP, by the TISA, and by the TIPP, the three tips. Regardless of what Mr. Trump has said, he stepped away from the TPP, but that doesn't mean that he's not a businessman. He's a businessman, and you know, it's nothing personal, it's just business. That's an issue that we spoke about with more detail in one of the past editions of the World's Wealth Project, but we are concerned today is how is it that we're going to react today to the consequences of transhumanism and the development of CRISPR are going to change in our societies. Why is this? If it's not available for anybody, and just this morning, being today, the 30th of November in 2017, the approach towards 1 in 6 pairs that want to have babies, they cannot, because 1 in 6 are whether the guy or the woman are not able to reproduce themselves, whether their sperm is very low in counting, or is the woman that is barren for any reason. One in six pairs in Canada and very close to the United States, where I don't know the exact data on them, but it's growing, of course. One in six are looking for fertilization in vitro. This costs from $15,000 to $50,000, and well, not everybody can pay that sum of money when it comes to create a family. What is it that we're going to do with enhancing babies and designer babies? With some people say that yes, CRISPR mentioned that this year, but not necessarily is the facts. According to other authors, we are still away to reach these goals. And as an article published by Jessica Berg, law dean, professor of law and professor of bioethics and public health from Case Western Reserve University, she says that we're still away from these technologies, and that, and I cite here, for example, that the DNA that makes up our genome comprises long sequences of base pairs, each base indicated by one of four letters. These letters form a genetic alphabet, and the words or sentences created from a particular order of letters are the genes that determine our characteristics. Sometimes words can be misspelled or sentences slightly garbled, resulting in a disease or a disorder. Genetic engineering is designed to correct those mistakes. CRISPR is a tool that enables scientists to target a specific area or a gene, working like the search and replace function in Microsoft Word, to remove a section and insert the correct sequence. In the last decade, CRISPR has been the primary tool for those seeking to modify genes, human and otherwise. Among other things, it has been used in experiments to make mosquitoes resistant to malaria, genetically modify plants to be resistant to disease, explore the possibility of engineered pets and livestock, and potentially threat or treat some human diseases, including HIV, hemophilia, and leukemia. Up until recently, says the author, the focus in human has been on changing the cells of a single individual and not changing eggs, sperm, and early embryos, what are called the germline, cells that pass traits along to offspring. The theory is that focusing on non-germline cells would limit any unexpected long-term impact of genetic changes of descendants. At the same time, this limitation means that we would have to use the technique in every generation, which affects its potential therapeutic benefit. Earlier this year, an international committee convened by the National Security or National Academy of Sciences, National Academy of Sciences, issued a report that, while highlighting the concerns with human germline genetic engineering, laid out a series of safeguards and recommended oversight. The report was widely regarded as opening the door to embryo editing research. That is exactly what happened in Oregon. Although this is the first study reported in the United States, similar research has been conducted in China. This new study, however, apparently avoided previous errors we've seen with CRISPR, such as changes in other untargeted parts of the genome, or the desired change not occurring in all cells. Both of these problems had made scientists wary of using CRISPR to make changes in embryos that might eventually be used in a human pregnancy. Evidence of more successful and thus safer CRISPR use may lead to additional studies involving human embryos. So, as you can see, the concern is well justified. In fact, there are a number of existing limits, both policy-based and scientific-based, that will create barriers to implanting and editing embryo to achieve the birth of a child. There is a federal ban on funding gene editing research in embryos. In some states, there are also total bans on embryo research, regardless of how funded. In addition, the implantation of unedited human embryos will be regulated under the Federal Human Research Regulations, the Food, Drug and Cosmetic Act, and potentially the federal rules regarding clinical laboratory testing. Beyond regulatory barriers, we are a long way from having the scientific knowledge necessary to design our children, says the author. While the Oregon experiment focused on a single gene correction to inherited diseases, there are few human traits that are controlled by one gene. Anything that involves multiple genes or a gene environment interaction will be less amenable to this type of engineering. Most characteristics we might be interested in designing, such as intelligence, personality, athletic or artistic or musical ability, are much more complex. And second, while this is a significant step forward in the science regarding the use of CRISPR technique, it is only one step. There is a long way to go between this and a cure for various diseases and disorders. This is not to say that there aren't concerns, but we have some time to consider these issues before the use of the technique becomes a mainstream media medical practice. So, taking in account the cautions above, we do need to decide when and how we should use this technique. Should there be limits on the types of things you can edit in an embryo? And if so, what should they entail? These questions also involve deciding who gets to set the limits and control access to the technology. We may also be concerned about who gets to control the subsequent research using this technology. Should there be state or federal oversight? Keep in mind that we cannot control what happens in other countries. Even in this country, it can be difficult to craft guidelines that restrict only the research someone finds objectionable, while allowing other important research to continue. Additionally, the use of assisted reproductive technologies, IVF, for example, is largely regulated and in some countries but unregulated in the United States. And the decision to put in place restrictions will certainly raise objections from both potential parents and IVF providers. Okay, let's finish the article by saying that moreover, there are important questions about costs and access. Right now, most assisted reproductive technologies are available only to higher income individuals. A handful of states mandate infertility treatment coverage, but it is very limited. How should we regulate access to embryo editing for serious diseases? We are in the midst of a widespread debate about healthcare, access, and cost. If it becomes established and safe, should this technique be part of a basic package of healthcare services? When used to help create a child who does not suffer from a specific genetic problem? What about editing for non-health issues or less serious problems? Are there fairness concerns if only people with sufficient wealth can access? Exactly. In the last edition of the Worldwell Project, as part of our React Today, what is it? How is it that we're going to react in case these technologies all of a sudden come and surprises us? I don't think we should wait that long. I think we should be ready for this and start developing forums regarding these matters locally in universities and, of course, make public this kind of information. As you can see, many scientists, is the case of Jennifer Doudna, who is the head of laboratories at the University of California, Berkeley. And she's the one that said that the government was not ready to hear the news about CRISPR technology editing when it comes to genome or embryos, embryonical manipulation. Well, she says that no, the government was not ready for this. Not even the people was ready for this, despite the fact that these are technologies and science techniques that have been worked on since the 90s. And way before that, we can remember Mendelssohn, for example, he experimented while he was in this monastery in the 19th century with plants, crossing plants, and it worked just fine. Thanks to his notes and his ability to do so, we have developed technologies. But the point is that these technologies also are influenced by superpowers. This is not a conspiracy theory, this is a fact. And facts that have been proven not to be conspiracy theories are well spread in the not mainstream media, but thanks to the internet, by people like Snowden and WikiLeaks, for example. But now, more than ever, is the rage of people when we cannot understand how this last campaign for the presidency of the United States, he still insists that 9/11, a whopper of a lie, a whopper of a lie, was still cited as a terrorist attack when we know that terrorism is to terrorize the citizens of the United States and the world is the purpose of these terrorist acts that we know well nowadays. It was a fake. It was an inside job. Period. To keep these lies will not give us an objective front line in what is going on in the world. So we're not talking about conspiracy theories now. We're talking about the facts and reality. So if you're one of those guys that don't know what is fact and what is fiction, what is fake news and what is true, well, just follow the money, seek the facts, and make your own approach to this matter. And of course, well, find better guides for these issues that affect us all, especially when it comes to the World's Wealth Project, which is looking for an answer that can produce more egalitarian or equalitarian, a more equalitarian world for all of us. That is not dependent on oil and gas, that is not dependent on kingdoms and money makers and plutocrats, but on democracy. Otherwise, democracy doesn't exist. It's one of the issues I wanted to speak about today in the World's Wealth Project. Don't get me wrong, don't say that I'm fooled by speaking the truth regarding 9/11, because that's what Trump said that he was going to find out. But after signing $110 billion in weaponry for Saudi Arabia, well, now they become best pals. Like I said, plutocrats don't really care about you or I. They just want to go to war in order to protect their own interests. Is this what a civilization is? Is this what we understand as a civilization? Not here in the World Wealth Project. If you don't agree with what is said in here, well, don't look at the channel, and yeah, you are free to do so. But we don't base our thoughts and research and investigation on speculation, but in facts, as is architects and engineers for 9/11. Okay, so regarding transhumanism and regarding politics, we are seeing, for example, in 2016, Sultan Islam run for presidency as a transhumanist. So this is serious things. These are serious business that we have to keep in mind, friends of the World's Wealth Project, and I suggest you not to disregard easily these realities. Today, $15,000 is the cost. As of today, $15,000 to $50,000 can be the cost of producing a human embryo in vitro here in Canada. As I remember, in 2004, the Reproductive Act was against the modification of the human genome, and of course included the fertilization in vitro, forbidden. This law has been, as mentioned in the last program, in the World's Wealth Project, it's changing in Canada, and of course it will change in the United States now that opposite countries that are looking for the transformation of humans in order to make them metabolically more efficient and pursue their goals, which are mostly war, and create soldiers that are more efficient in accomplishing their missions with no remorse within themselves. They just find the target and kill everything around it. So the efficiency in this matters. The efficiency regarding if you have a prosthetic, amplified, optimized piece on your body that will enhance your ability to do tasks, well, you might be welcomed by the system. The point is, by when these technologies, as transhumanist technologies, that nanotechnology, information technologies, biotechnologies, and cognitive sciences come together in order to influence humans, as we mentioned in the last edition, and it's already begun, because you can see in the internet a lot of pills all around the place. How are we going to react today to these matters instead of waiting for them to just overwhelm us? Is the suggestion for the World's Wealth Project and react today that you take action on these matters. How do you do that? Talk, ask your representative in your community, your local community. Talk to your mayor, talk to your councils. Gather, speak about these matters, and prevent aspects that in the future might harm you. And I'm speaking about robotics. Yes, in Canada, they're speaking about 8 million people that will lose their jobs in the next 5 to 10 years. And how is it that this affects the economy? And how is it that the banking, this illusion that is money, that is created from thin air, according to many critics of the established way of central banking that manages the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund, that only creates debt for the countries and is, of course, case for war or total isolation. Now that President Trump has talked this morning saying that North Korea, because of his last provocation by sending a missile again, is asking for the whole world to ban North Korea of all kind of trades and deals with North Korea. We'll see how it's going to go now. Apparently, the United States has loose grip on the world, and the only way for them to demonstrate is that they are still in charge. It's by war or superpowers. I don't know what happened with the THAAD anti-missile radar system that was put on service just a couple months ago by the Americans and Koreans. How come they didn't destroy or destroy the missile? So we see that we want to advance in many areas regarding technologies. But as mentioned by the authors that I just cited here, that are well informed about what sciences are, well, don't let us be overwhelmed by this and react today, and take away the governments from the plutocrats, because it's not working. It's only benefiting very few. As the book Plutocrats that the current foreign affairs minister in Canada wrote a couple of years ago, Plutocrats, the rise of the very rich and the fall of everyone else. That's the name of the book. React today. See you next time.